Well, the time is just gone 3 minutes past 5 as we continue with the broadcast this afternoon on the Iftar Drive right here on Solar Media. And we're now taking a look at BRICS and just to understand what BRICS is all about. And for young people in particular, how many young people really do understand or know what BRICS is about? What is the mission? What is the vision behind BRICS? What is the purpose? And more importantly, how does BRICS actually fit into the greater scheme of things as far as the country is concerned, in terms of the economy, in terms of economic development, and a number of other issues. And it's important because BRICS, looking at an organization like BRICS, looking at countries like Russia, China, these are major countries, major powers right across the entire world. And whatever happens in those countries or our cooperation and whatever relationship we have with these countries impacts on us and will impact on the future of our youth. And this is the reason why we are talking this afternoon with former TV presenter and activist Mayibuye Mandela. And we also have got Gina Brown from African Innovations with a bachelor's from King's College in London. Mayibuye and Gina, to both of you, I see you guys are seated together. So that's wonderful. Welcome and thank you for your time this afternoon.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Yes, I'm not too sure who to start with, but we'll go with ladies first, and that
Ladies
seems to
first?
be the policy. And just to understand, Gina, looking at BRICS and looking at the crucial role that it is playing for us here in South Africa, in particular. But again, sometimes very little is actually known by people, particularly young people, looking at the bigger scheme of things, looking at where we are as a country, looking at all the challenges, whether we're talking about hunger, poverty, just taking the country forward. So take us through, what you and Mayibuye are actually aiming to do.
For sure. I mean, first of all, you're right that we were actually inspired to make this whole What is BRICS tour, because many people actually don't know much about it. And there are many different theories, debates, and perspectives. But luckily, it's being a big, important topic in global affairs right now. You have Saudi talking about it, you have Europe talking about it. So what is BRICS and what actually is the benefit in South Africa right now? What do people not really know about it? I think what people don't know is that the National Development Bank actually provides South Africa with an alternative for much cheaper loans compared to commercial banks. So we get to borrow at much lower rates. It's funding many infrastructure projects, and it's bringing a lot of technological innovation. And I remember that it's also increasing our energy sector. So it's providing a lot of opportunities in a way that we can now fund our projects in a much better case with a lot less strings attached. And the other thing that people always talk about is they say, is South Africa just being used by China? And is this actually worse for us because we had a trade deficit? But actually, the trade deficit means that Chinese companies are more likely to invest in South African commodities. So overall, there's a lot more benefits for us.
Well, definitely. And also, I think, Mayibuye, what is important to understand is to look at the importance that BRICS is actually gaining internationally. Firstly, when one looks at the countries that are within the BRICS, you're looking at China and India. These are countries with massive populations. So they represent a lot of people and they represent huge economies just in those two countries alone. And then obviously you've got Russia, you've got the likes of Brazil as well. But also at this point in time, with China featuring very, very prominently as the leading economy right across the entire world. And many countries are now starting that were traditionally even allied to the likes of America and Europe are starting to look at China. And this is the reason why BRICS is going to, in the future, BRICS is going to be featuring more and more prominently and more important, I would say, on the international arena.
Yes, I hear your explanation, and it is quite correct and it is quite right. But us as the South Africans, I quite believe that it is important. This is the reason why we're doing the BRICS tour. It is quite important to educate our people, the youth in particular, that will take over after us in this country. to know about BRICS, because most people don't understand when you're talking about BRICS, whether you're talking about a stone or whether you're talking about anything else. So I believe it is quite interesting. And we are in a paraffin speed, me and again, teaching the youth of South Africa about what is BRICS, because immediately when you talk about BRICS to someone, what kicks in his or her consciousness, it's about the war that is currently happening in Russia and in Ukraine. But it's not about that. We're talking about the importance of the economy of the country in particular.
And I also think that you're right in seeing that now in global affairs, we're proving that BRICS is a lot more significant and that there is actually an impact that we are now seeing. I think the biggest impact that we're seeing lately, or actually most recently, other than Macron saying that Europe should also de-dollarize, become less dependent on the dollar, Saudi Arabia decided that they were going to accept or consider accepting yuan to trade oil. Now, not only was that a major shock to their alliance with America, but on top of that, they've had a 7-year feud or dispute with Iran, which they recently, 2 weeks ago, brokered a peace deal. China brokered a peace deal between Saudi and Iran, which shows that there actually is a significant impact in diplomatic world affairs, and that this will not just be a temporary topic, but that this is showing a whole step in a new, that this is making a whole new impact to a new system.
Well, exactly. In fact, I'm quite glad you actually raised those issues in terms of looking at China from a diplomatic perspective, Chinese diplomacy. And you rightly point out the issues surrounding Saudi Arabia, Iran as well, the whole question surrounding the Chinese currency. And all of that actually puts BRICS in a very, very good position. And this is the reason why, when we're talking about this tour that both Gina, yourself, and Mayibuye are conducting to educate the youth, because it is going to be countries like China, it is going to be countries like some of the other countries within BRICS that are going to be creating the opportunities that young people need. Because at this point in time, we know that many young people actually feel, that they're despondent, that they don't have much of a future. We hear of the high unemployment rate amongst the youth in the country, the lack of opportunity, the lack of growth in the country, job creation. All of that is obviously causing a lot of problems. And I'm sure that through this initiative, these are some of the key issues that Gina, yourself, and Mayibuye are highlighting to young people.
Well, this is actually one of the inspirations and aims that we wanted to achieve with this project, which is not just to tell South Africans. So as South Africa is the only African country in BRICS so far, we have a very crucial role in this new alliance. And we should really learn what this means for us, what opportunities this brings us, what market, it opens up a whole new bunch of markets for the entrepreneurs of the next generation. So we wanted to teach them what this is and how they can be better equipped to understand the benefits of this alliance, and then also take that and be more equipped to use or find leverage, to bring the leverage to South Africa and to find ways to, make use of, be aware of these opportunities and then make use of these opportunities to benefit us.
And what is also quite entertaining and loving this of teaching the youth, Gina has traveled all over the world, So when it comes to the South African teaching about BRICS, he actually knows what he's speaking about. He knows what the economy, he knows what has worked in other countries too, because he has traveled and studied in many countries in the world. So he knows what works. And what I like about in working with Gina also is that he came back to his own country, South Africa, and gave back to the same community, to the same people that you want to develop. So I think this is something that must be supported. I think schools must also call upon us if they are interested, so we can visit many schools as we can and drive this initiative and educate our people. Those who know, there is a saying that I usually say that those who know must teach. And this is the time, and it's upon us, the youth. If anyone doesn't stand, no one will educate us.
Yes. Just to take us through the process, and for schools that are interested, what do they need to do,
Well, if the schools are interested, they can just email us at Africa Innovation. At information at Africa Innovation, or us directly, Gina.Brown at Africa Innovation, and Mayibuye.Mandela at Africa Innovation. Just pitch the schools to us, tell us what schedules will work for you, and we'll come sort it out. So far, we've been reaching out to schools and asking them when they could fit us in. And on Monday, we started our first class, where we basically went to the school to speak to the principal, who was so excited that she already threw us straight into a grade 10 EMS class. And we ended up introducing the whole concept of what are trade blocks, what is the international financial system, what is the historic emergence of BRICS. Then we also went around with him speaking in Koza, teaching them the very basics of what is BRICS, what are the commodities that are traded in each, what are the benefits that would bring to us. And the students showed us that they really understood the concept of economic policies, but they weren't really aware of BRICS, but they were very curious and excited about the curiosity because they asked all the right questions. What is the benefit to South Africa? One said, does this mean we're moving from one master to the other? They also asked about the conspiracy theories against, the threats of China, and how to mitigate it. And they also asked if this means that we will no longer be part of the World Bank, if we're part of a new development bank, how would we survive and what would that mean for us? So yeah.
So this also showed us that our youth, in particular in schools, they are excluded on what is happening in the country, in the world. We know it for a fact that our young sisters and brothers that are still in high school, they don't go home and watch the news. You see, they don't have time for that. So how do you transfer such a knowledge to a student? So I think this initiative that we've took, me and Dina, would benefit a lot of people. People will start understanding what is BRICS. I think it is a great initiative too. You see, I believe in it, and I'm dedicated, and we are both dedicated in continuing teaching on what is BRICS. We believe everyone has the right to know.
Well, certainly, and I think, sorry, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to say the main importance of this is to know how is being aware of BRICS going to change and influence the whole political and economic future and the economic and political power relations. Being a part of BRICS also gives South Africa a lot more influence in international political affairs, as well as a lot more access and influence in African economic affairs. And even the concept of BRICS, if you were to take it back a few years, and you would see some historical leaders like Gaddafi and the ex-Ghanaian president speaking out about if Africa traded our commodities in an African Union type of unified African reserve currency, Africa would have been a lot more powerful because we would have had the power of trade in their own currency. The whole reason why America is even the world hegemonic power is because America knew how to leverage underwriting debt and becoming this world reserve currency after the fall of Bretton Woods.
Well, both you and Mayibuye, I must say that, for someone like myself, and I've spent many years in media looking at global issues, current affairs, political, socio-economic, economic, and just haven't followed the developments. It's basically, I'm very encouraged by listening to both of you and what you have actually set out to achieve through this initiative, because this is much needed. I think, growing up obviously in the apartheid era where we were politicized and we had a lot of interest in the subject and looking at our own futures at that point in time. And we're now taking a look at there's another dynamic that is playing out right across the entire world. So much has actually changed. And, like you mentioned, the African Union currency, looking at the dollar, being the dominant currency, the damage that the dollar has done to the world, looking at the economy, looking at China, how economies have grown, the World Bank, the IMF, so much basically has played around us. And at the end of the day, are we better off or are we worse off? And that is a question that we need to ask. And that is the reason why I say we need to start thinking differently. We need to start looking at other avenues, other initiatives like BRICS. And the young people, they are our future. And this is all for them. And I take my hat off to both of you. Well done. And I was just hoping that we had more time to talk about a lot more issues, but sadly, time is of the essence. And at some point in time, I would like to engage with both of you as well on a more detailed platform.
Thank you.
Thank
So
you.
we'll also be happy. We'll also be very.
All the best. Take care to both to Mayibuye and Gina. Thank you once again for your time. We do appreciate it.
Thank you.
Mayibuye Mandela and Gina Brown with us this afternoon right here on Salam Media, and we're going to go for a break. We'll come back and we will be joined by Chef Riyad Fattar, taking a look at the day of Eid, looking at load shedding. Representation has been made by the MJC for load shedding, for a reprieve against load shedding on the day of Eid, inshallah.